Hello boys and girls, and welcome to the channel Xcode Bill. I am your host Bill Yengo, and it's a beautiful and perfectly sunny morning here in Cameroon, West Africa. In this video tutorial, we'll be setting up a development environment for Node.js, TypeScript, and basically we'll be creating the building block for an API that you might want to work on with Node.js and TypeScript. Now, this can be used as a base for any project that you wish to work on in the near future. Now, let's hop in and let's get cracking. So we're currently in the YouTube directory. We can see that it's found in my home, Bill, and YouTube. And we're going to make a directory called TS node, and we're going to cd into that directory. Do a code dot, and which will basically open up that in our TS code. Let me increase the size so that you can be able to see properly. So we're going to go ahead. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to an npm init -y is basically going to create our basic package.json file. So once we have our package.json file, we're going to go ahead and install calls for cross-site referencing. We're going to install Express, which is going to be for creating our API, and .env for managing our package.json our .env files. So we're going to have that installed, and that has been installed. We're going to go ahead right now and install our development packages, which is going to be NodeMon for running a dev server, and we'll install types for calls, Express, and Node, which will offer us the TS node, and also TypeScript. And once we have that installed, let's just have to wait for that to install, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we have that installed. Let's do CLS, and then in our package.json, realize that we have our dev dependencies and our dependencies for production. What we're going to do now is we're going to do npx tsc, and we'll do a -init. This will basically create a basic ts config file for us. So this gives you access to all the options that you need in order to set up TypeScript to compile your TypeScript into JS files. So we're targeting ES 2016. The module is going to be CommonJS. We will set our root directory through to src, which basically means source, and you can do a Control F and put out. So we want our output directory to be dist. So once we have that set up, what we need to do now is we're going to close this. We'll go ahead in the root folder. We'll create an src folder. Inside that, we'll create our server.ts, and we're just going to do, let's get rid of this. Let's do console log hello, right? Sorry, hello. I can't spell hello. Interesting. So once we have that, let's go ahead and set up. Now, before we do that, we can, in order to compile our file, we can just do a tsc, and we notice that because we set the output directory and source directory, it will compile the source directory, and we'll notice that it's being compiled now. We have our server.js, but we cannot run things like this. We need to have scripts. We're coming in here, and let's get rid of the test script, and we'll have a start script, right, which is basically going to do a node and get into the dist folder, and then it's going to run, let's get rid of this / server.ts. We're also going to have a build script, and it's going to basically run tsc, which is basically going to compile that. We'll also have a dev for running our development server, which will basically use NodeMon, and then source folder and server.ts. And this will basically ensure that as we change our file, it's going to recompile and run our server, right? So let's go ahead and do, let's clean this up. Let's do CLS. Let's remove the dist folder. get rid of that. So now let's go ahead and set up our server. So the basic things that we want to do in a server is that we want to be able to do some basic configurations. So let's get in the source folder. Let's do a folder called config. And then inside config, we're going to call this .env.config.ts. And inside here, we're going to import .env from .env. And then we're going to create an anonymous function and call that function. And we're going to say .env.config. This is basically going to run that. And then we're also going to create our .env file. So I'm going to call this env. .env. And inside here, we're going to put our port to be equals to 3000, and we'll put our host to be equals to localhost. So we have these two set up. So basically, this will, once we run this will give us access to things like process the env.whatever environment variable that we place in here. Let's come into our server and let's get rid of this, and we'll say import express from express, and we're going to say import config /.env. So basically, once we import this, it's going to go into this file and it's going to set up the configuration for us. So let's get rid of package.json. Let's get rid of the env. Let's now set up our app. So we're going to say const app is equals to express. This will give us access to that, and then we want to be able to receive. We'll do some basic middleware. So app.use. We want to be able to say express.json. This will give us access to, our body. It will pass whatever payload we're sending from the front end. So we'll do express now app.use, and we'll do express.url encoded, and we'll set extended to false. And also, because we installed our calls, we'll say app.use, and we will say calls. Okay, we have to import calls, right? So let's say import calls from calls, and now we're going to say calls, and then we're going to say we want to have an origin, which means that these are the domains that we want to receive requests from. So for the moment, you can set it to a star, which basically means from any source. You can always change this to say a specific domain that you want to receive requests from. You can also say credentials, set that to true, which basically means that you want to request things like certain headers or sessions or tokens and all that kind of stuff. In future tutorials, we're going to actually work on this and see how this is going to be used, but we just want to set up a basic Node.js TypeScript project. So we're going to now say const port. Remember that we had our .env where we did the configuration and we imported that here, and it runs that for us. We're going to say we want to pass port is equals to pass int, and then we want to say process.env.port, and then we're going to say a string because we're using TypeScript. And if we did not set that port, we want to set that to 30,001. We want to also say const host is equals to process.env.host. And if we did not set that, we want to say that our host should be localhost, right? And once we have that, we then come at the bottom, and then we can say app.listen, and we want it to listen to that port, and we want to set the host to that, and then we run an anonymous function. And inside here, we're going to say console log, and we use a backtick because we want to use a string literal. And then we're going to say server running on. Then we can then do a host, and after that host, we're going to do colon, and we're going to put I think we have to do const host. Okay, so we can push http. This is because we're running it on a dev server / without the 4, unfortunately. And then we'll now say that after that we want to put our port, so server running on this port. So let's go ahead and run a server, right? So say npm run dev, right? So we should get server running on this. So once we have that, now let's set up a basic API route that we can get from the server, right? So let's go ahead. Now we can just do it plain here, but let's go ahead and make it a little bit fancy, right? So in order to do that, let's come into our source. Let's have a folder called routes, right? And then let's have another folder in here called services, right? So I'm doing this just to show you how things will be structured, right? So inside route, let's just call this main.route. Let's say ts, and let's put this on the side, and let's come in our services, and let's call this main.service.ts. Right, now this is going to be a little bit confusing, but we're going to put that in perspective. So inside a service, we just basically want to say export function. Let's just say hello, and this is going to take a request, and it's going to be a request that comes in from TypeScript. So let's come in here and we say import from Express. Let's come in here. Let's say we want to get the next function, we want to get the request, and we also want to get the response, right? And so this is our route on the right, and this is our service on the left. So we have a request, we have a response. I will say response, we are putting types to that, and our next, which is going to be our next function. So let's get rid of this. Let's put this a little bit on the side. So this is going to be our function. And then we're just going to send a message back to the user, right? So we'll just say res.json. You can use res.json, you can use res.send, but I do like to use res.json. And then let's send in a message. Sorry about that. Let's say message, welcome to TS Node application, right? So we have that set up. We're exporting the function, and inside our routes, we're going to say const, we'll say import express from express, okay, and then we'll say const router, yeah, is equals to express.router. I'm not sure if actually have, yeah, it's a function, yeah. So express.router, and it returns, and router, yeah, it returns a router. And then let's come at the bottom here and say export router. Let's do export default router. In here, let's just do a get. So on the router, we can do router.get, we can do router.post, but in the next video, we'll create a basic user router, a basic CRUD operation. So at the very beginning, we just want to do a router.get, and we want to do a slash, and then we have our, normally it should take a function, a callback function, which is a request handler, but this is basically what we have here. We're basically going to have that. So here, so we'll come here and say, we'll say import all from dash services dash main service, right? So we're going to say import all as main service. That is because we want to pass in this function into this object here. We have an error message here. As expected. As main service. And then we do router.get, and then we'll say main service dot hello, right? So once we have that set up, so this is a slash here, and then we can now go into, let's get rid of these. We'll now go into our server, and then we're going to say import all from to slash route slash, so this is our main route, right? All as main router, and then in here going to say app dot use, and then we'll say we want to put the URL as slash API slash, let's just say main, right? And then we'll say main router. We can do main router dot default, and the reason it's going to do this is because if we come in here, we exported these as the default. But if we do not want to do that, we can just say import main router from main route, which means we have to get rid of this default, right? So that should work. We shouldn't get any error messages here. So we now have a localhost 3000. Now, in order to test that, we can, because we're using a GET request, we can go ahead and open up a browser, and then let's say, let's put this here. Let's put on the left side. Let's copy our domain name, and then let's put this in here. It's going to say cannot get this, but the URL we're looking to get is API slash main. Now you see that because we're making the GET request, we get the message, welcome to TS Node. Now, in the next tutorial, we're looking at building a basic CRUD operation with user, and we use in-memory. So let's keep that at this point. And so we see that we're able to make this request to API.main. So what that does is it comes into our server, it comes into app.use, it discovers that we have this URL, it comes to the main router and sees that we have a GET request here on slash. So it basically appends API.main and appends the slash here. And then it's okay, fine. Once it comes into this route, it tries to get the handler. Now remember that we have main service.hello here, but if this seems inconvenient for you, you can basically get rid of this, and you say hello, and you get rid of this. So it's just a matter of preference. I prefer to do it either way. As you gain more experience, you find that it just depends on the way you choose to handle it. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video. The link to the repository for the code base for this particular video tutorial will be in the description. Feel free to clone it, play around with it, and use it as you wish. In the next tutorial, we'll be setting up CRUD operations, and we'll be making API calls to the backend. I hope you did enjoy the video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below in the comment section. So bye for now, and see you on the other side.